Greetings, everyone. Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool.
I know.
It feels so right.
It's Jake Ciely.
Opening our minds to new ideas. Kill him!
Who is that guy?
Your mama. You just made the list.
Oh, wait, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in fantasy. Days of the range.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you Ducks. It is week 3 already. Yes, week 3 of the fantasy football season, of the NFL season. I don't even know that the NFL is ready for this because I just saw a tweet as we're starting the show, Chris Meaney. It says, in the first quarter of an NFL game, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the first rookie since his dad to have 4 receptions and 130 yards and 4 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure they missed something on that last one. You might want to check the numbers again, check the tape, because that's 4 touchdowns. I don't remember that part.
No, I wish it happened. Credit to Marvin Harrison. Like, he's going to be a stud in the league. After the game, he talked about like Kyler's stat line, and he blamed himself and why it wasn't as good as what it could have been, and it was fantastic. Right? There's a couple drops that he had, a couple disconnects there. So even though he had a fantastic game and an amazing first quarter, he was pretty hard on himself for that performance. But hey, it was a good one.
If you stuck with him and kept him in there, obviously.
Oh,
yeah, you hit big, and not a surprise because like Marvin Harrison, like the overreactions to week 1 are often that's why we talk about it every single year, is don't overreact to week 1. I mean, Marvin Harrison wasn't top 6 or 7 like a lot of people might have drafted him as such, but he was still a must start. Drake London, more of a conversation to be had, and we'll jump right into that before we get into the waivers because we have to talk about Monday Night Football worries because there's a lot. It's 2 weeks now. Now the worries is not just the one game; it's potentially 2. But last night, Monday Night Football. I apologize in advance, Chris Meaney. Over at FTN, make sure you check out all his good stuff. Make him feel better about his bets. He's always good about that. So, Eagles did not come through. Barkley's upset in the background, as you can hear. Potentially, she's playing. And, yeah, I'm talking about you.
Should be upset.
Didn't get that touchdown. Get over here. They didn't get that touchdown, but I was upset about that. Look, she's even coming on the camera if you're watching live on YouTube. Estes is
Barkley.
the podcast experience.
Why did you catch that ball last night, Barkley?
Thank you for yelling in my ear, Meanie. It's not like she can hear you.
Oh, well.
Anyway, the Kirk Cousins was the biggest takeaway from that game. We knew A.J. Brown. Well, I guess A.J. Brown being out for multiple weeks is something people didn't expect to hear. But the eyes were on Kirk Cousins. I tweeted during the game, I want to see your thoughts. I thought he definitively looked better, but he still didn't look 100%. I mean, look, he was dropping from under center. There was actual play action. There was turning his back. There was dropping back. He looked better. Mm-hmm. He's still not quite 100% until that final drive. Like, I don't know if it was muscle memory. No. That prevent defense. I don't know if it was like muscle memory or whatever it was, or maybe it seemed that maybe he wasn't thinking about the injury, and that made him play more comfortably. Because if you said throughout the game, it's like he looks about 90%, throwing out a number. Like, I don't know what that means, but 90%. He looks close to 100%, not quite there. That final drive, he looked like Kirk Cousins. Like, it looked like it wasn't any limitation. There wasn't any thought behind it. So I have hope that this carries over into next week, where if people are panicking about Kyle Pitts or if Darnell Mooney's still sitting out there, somebody you and I have talked about a lot and we didn't want to touch until Kirk Cousins was okay. But if Mooney's out there on waivers, and we're going to talk about wide receiver waivers and where he slides in, but buy low on Pitts. I probably can't buy low on Drake London now, but I felt a lot better, mostly because of that last drive. Like, up until that point, I'm like, all right, I'm still going to be a little hesitant about week 3, but that last drive made me feel a lot better.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why they gave him the bucks, right? They paid him for those big moments where, he can move down the field and put his team into a situation to win football games. It just wasn't the case last year with the quarterback play. He certainly was more comfortable. They just played to his strengths. Like, week 1, he was in the pistol like 99% of the time. And for his entire career, this guy was under center. So It was really weird to hear him talk about that, because he said from April on, the moment that he signed, they've been working out of the pistol. This is something that they prepped for. And then already after week 1, they kind of put that away, and he was under center, which is, again, what he did throughout his entire career. And then I heard from him actually after the game last night that the plan was just against the Steelers for him to be in pistol, just the way that the defense is in Pittsburgh. So I thought that was pretty interesting to hear. So yeah, back under center, more comfortable. They ran the play action. That's what they're going to do. Like, that's the offense in Atlanta. The offensive line is great. Run the football. They were able to do that successfully. Incorporate the play action, hit some shots down the field. The one time the Eagles blitzed him, 0 blitz, hit Mooney in the middle of the field. So yeah, it was certainly encouraging to see. The final drive does, like you said, kind of saves London. Other than that, he was fairly quiet, but he gets the touchdown there at the end. And yeah, it's encouraging. Game number 2, game number 1 was awful. Game number 2, encouraging. Next couple games, really, really tough opponents. And then the schedule opens up for them. So it was really encouraging to see from the Falcons side.
It was. They get the Chiefs at home, but I would be willing to still, like I said, buy low on Pitts if he can. Although everybody needs tight ends right now, because what did I tell you?
I mean,
yesterday?
Kelsey's got the fewest yards in his history in back-to-back games. So like, yeah, there's other tight ends that are showing up, but the big 2 certainly aren't.
Well, I talked about that at length with Mayo on his rankings podcast yesterday, and that I think the answer to fix Travis Kelce is not Travis Kelce. It's not Patrick Mahomes. It's not even the running backs in play. The answer to fixing Travis Kelce is Xavier Worthy, is treating him as a true number 2 out there for 90% of the routes. Have him run what Marquise Brown was going to run, because Marquise Brown was going to help Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, we all know he's not in his prime anymore. He's not separating from defenders 20, 25 yards downfield. Boundary plays, he's not separating and getting that. He's having to make positional catches, and he's not separating to that level. He can still do a ton of the work in the intermediate middle of the field. Still great, still one of the best. But you've taken away a little bit of an aspect of his game, and how do you fix that? You push the secondary deeper, but they don't need to be right now. Yeah, Xavier Worthy's out there. You maybe get one extra safety. It almost feels like you mentioned yesterday on Sirius XM, teams running a little bit more 2 deep, and that's coming back around a little bit. Like, the 1 deep on the Chiefs seems to be a little more of a thing of like, okay, we'll worry about Worthy, but that's it. And it's only a half worry. Like, you need to get that secondary deeper because Rashee Rice is doing all his work, and he is the one for this team. Well, Kelsey's just going to get left out of the equation. I think the answers to Worthy, as we sidebar quickly on that. The answer to the Rams, we're going to start with worries here before we get to the wide receivers and everything like that. Let's put it this way. How many ducks do you think I gave Matthew Stafford? Let me put it that way. That's the way I'll phrase it. Infinity Duck, yes. The Infinity Duck has made his first debut.
Should have them.
In week 3. He just lost his 3rd offensive lineman to the IR. That's now 3 out of 5 on the IR. 4th is hurt. And if anybody watched that game, it is bad. Like, Matthew Stafford, this is looking like a lost season for the Rams. Matthew Stafford's now down, as we know, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. We'll talk the wide receivers in a second, but Kyron Williams couldn't get anything going. Blake Corum mixed in, couldn't get much going himself. This is bad, and it's Infinity Duck in the fact that, like, Matthew Stafford was potentially somebody that you were starting while you wait for Caleb Williams to figure things out, wait for whoever else you might be on your bench, hold over for Jordan Love. Here's how far I'll go with it. Would you drop Stafford for Andy Dalton?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In a
Get
super
the red rifle.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I don't expect a whole lot from Dalton, but the offense is going to look better than how it's looked over the past couple of weeks with Bryce Young. But yeah, the offensive line is one thing, right? And even with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua there, I think we would be concerned a little bit on how this offense would look. So now you're down those offensive linemen, and you're down the 2 stud wide receivers, plus you're down pieces defensively. Like, they've gone through it. And usually every year there's just a team that this happens to. The Ravens a couple years ago, where everybody got hurt in camp, corners, running backs. It just seemed like a lost season. And man, Stafford and company's been through this. The year after the Super Bowl, everybody went down.
This is not the first time.
So yeah, it's tough. I know a lot of people are trying to put out there a Stafford trade to Miami. It would be fun. Trades don't really happen in season, but LA should consider it because it's a lost season.
Yeah,
I wouldn't get anything.
I kind of like
but
that.
Stafford to Miami would be fun. But yeah, at the moment, there's really no reason to play him. And I do have concerns about Kyren Williams. You know, people said to me yesterday, how come they didn't run the ball in Arizona? You can run the ball in Arizona. Everyone runs the ball. It was like, have you seen the offensive line? Like, you need an offensive line to run the football. It's not that simple. Like, we'll just turn to Kyren 30 times a game. Dude's going to take some shots. He's not going to be efficient. We'll probably see a more Blake Corum moving forward too, and they will lean on both of these guys.
Well, because of that, do you think Kyren Williams is no longer a top 10 running back?
Kind of, yeah. He's I was low on him anyways. I had him like RB9-ish.
I mean,
so I'm guys like James Cook, right? I think have moved ahead of him. Alvin Kamara, clearly, not just because he scored 4 touchdowns, but the way that they're running the football in New Orleans.
So I think we would like Barkley, Achane. You mentioned Kamara, Cook, Breece Hall. Bijan Robinson,
even Jordan Mason, as long as he's healthy.
I was just about to say Jordan Mason, obviously, until Christian McCaffrey is back, if and when. Would you go Gibbs? You would go Gibbs, I'm assuming.
And Henry.
Derrick Henry. Josh Jacobs, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Jonathan Taylor, yeah.
Yeah.
And all right, now this is what we're getting.
Interesting. Taylor's not going to – is he not going to catch any passes this year? Because he didn't catch any passes in week 1. He caught a couple passes in week 2. But it was really interesting to hear Steichen talk about Jacobs in the fourth quarter not getting any run because he knew that they were playing from behind and they were just going to pass the football. But I was like, yeah, man, Jacobs can catch too, or Taylor can catch too. Like maybe he should be in there catching a couple passes. I just thought that was interesting because he's just a couple years removed from 50 grabs. Oh yeah, I don't think with Anthony Richardson, he may only catch like 30 passes. That's nice, but that's not really.
So if you had to, I wouldn't have him in there. So if you had to give ducks to Jonathan Taylor, are you giving him one?
I'd give him one. Yeah. I give him one duck on just the fact that he may not catch 40, 45 passes.
Yeah, he's got the run game going. So I'm with you. All right. So what was the one that I left out? I was going to come back to it. Oh, so there's 2 running backs straight up versus Kyren Williams who start off really hot. Ramondre Stevenson or Kyren Williams?
Oh, man. Maybe Ramondre. Just like with all the work, it could just be very similar. Yeah, I'll lean with Ramondre. I think given the situation in LA,
46 carries through 2 weeks.
Right. Like he's getting all of the work that Kyron's going to get and maybe even more because they may use
who has more carries than Stevenson? Jacobs and Mason.
Jacobs and Mason. Because he's just like at a
48 and 48.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's nice to see because I know it's a team that's going to be playing from behind quite a bit, but they're going to be committed to the run. They've been in both games to start, but they're going to be committed to the run.
Committed to the run. I'm glad you said that because there was 2 more I'm going to give you. And since you said speaking of committing to the run, or I said speaking of, J.K. Dobbins or Kyren Williams.
Yeah, I mean, just give me J.K. It's 2 games. I don't want to like Gus is still very much involved. It's a split between the 2, but J.K. looks better, and maybe that one's a little too bullish, but I'm right there in the combo.
I mean, another week of it, I think a third week of J.K. Dobbins looking like he is with the Chargers, and then another week of no offensive line. Like, if Kyren Williams gets stuffed next week, I don't think a lot of people would argue with you. And then I think this one's pretty easy and something I didn't rank in this preseason because I don't try to project injuries, but there are players with histories that I will knock down a little bit just because of what we know. If you don't know where I'm going with this one, James Conner or Kyren Williams, because Connor, right?
It's Connor. Yeah, and you're right. This out of all
the
dudes you just gave me, that one's easier, and he may not, and Kyren may not either. That's the thing as well. Like Kyren hasn't showed us.
That's a fair point.
Season. But this Arizona offense, there are reasons to be like optimistic and excited about this offense. I thought they did some great things in Buffalo, and then they dummied the Rams. Forget about the injuries up front. They dummied them early in that game, and Kyler looks healthy. He's got an alpha. McBride looks like a mismatch, and James Conner we both like. We've always liked James Conner. Yeah, he's going to miss a game or 2, but he's RB10, RB11 fantasy points per game the last couple of years. He's off to a great start. The fumble near the goal line. He would have had another touchdown there, but yeah, it's James Conner for me, and he's a top 12 back in my opinion.
All right. Let's move on from this and talk a few more worries, and then we'll get into waivers.
Or Kyron.
Yeah, poor Kyron. He's like, pour one out. Okay, there you go. Are we pouring one out for Rachaad White? I want you to check me on this one because you know how I feel about Rachaad White, and I gave him 3 ducks, not 4, not 5, not infinity yet, but pretty heavily 3 because before the injury even happened, we talked about this again on Sirius XM. If anybody already listened, kind of going to be repeating a little bit, but the Bucky Irving concern I had was the passing game. Bucky Irving is not just involved in the passing game; he's actually more involved in the run game, taking away those touches, which is where Rachaad White was super inefficient last year. Bring all that up to say, we could be looking at the comparison I keep making is Najee Harris to Jaylen Warren last year. And what did everybody want on that team? Everybody wanted Jaylen Warren and Jaylen Warren in fantasy because Jaylen Warren would have the better performance, the better days, look better. Right now, I think we're kind of headed down that path a little bit here. Am I crazy, or would you go higher or lower than 3 ducks on Rachaad White?
No, I think 3's fair. The biggest thing I'll say is he does still seem like the feature back, and the snaps are there, early down work. But everything that you and I said in the preseason is kind of happening right in front of our eyes, and we're just into week 3 already. You know what I mean? Like Rachaad White, we talked about the usage, the touches. He was near the top in every category, like catches and targets and opportunities on the ground, red zone, all that stuff. But he hasn't been efficient. And so far, I'm not seeing an efficient running back. 15 attempts for 31 yards, 10 attempts for 18 yards. And I get it was the Lions' tough run defense this week against Denver, a good spot. Atlanta, the Saints, the Ravens, Atlanta, the Eagles coming up. Those are very tough spots for running backs as well. Maybe not the Eagles, depending on what Vic Fangio decides to do. But yeah, it's a new regime. They drafted a guy. Bucky's that guy they drafted. If he continues to miss holes and he's not efficient, right, there's a real reason to play Bucky Irving and turn this into a full-on split. So you and I would pour one out for him being an RB1 and high in RB2 when people were drafting him. Maybe he's just turning into, I still think, is it a low-end RB2. But, yeah, there are certainly reasons to be concerned if you are a Rachaad White owner. And as you said on the series show, and I think as we said last week, or even before week 1 started, when you did your, these guys are available in leagues, Bucky's one of those guys that you need to have on your roster because things could change. And guess what? Tampa's offense looks pretty good without Dave Canales to start the season.
Hey, number one fantasy football quarterback, Baker Mayfield.
My goodness, it's way on quarterback. I waited on the wrong guy in Goff. I wish it took Baker.
Yeah, it's Baker then Derek. It's Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, number 1 and number 2 in fantasy. And then Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, Lamar, Allen, Hurts. Lamar, Allen, Hurts down at 5, 6, 7. Richardson at 8. So there you go. Basically, the top 4 quarterbacks off the board are at 5, 6, 7, and 8.
And that's fine, as long as they're not at 14, 15, and 16. Like, those guys are going to have some stud games, but at least they're still top 10 quarterbacks.
I don't think they'll finish there, too. I think at least 2 of them will jump up. Josh Allen's at 6 and had a miserable week, too. So
Allen's the guy I'm maybe a little concerned with finishing quarterback 1 overall. I mean, I had him at 2, so I can't sit here and say, I was super concerned heading in. But just the way that their offense is running. It's only a couple weeks, and that game was out of hand. But if you go back to when Joe Brady took over, this is more of a run-first team. It's not Josh Allen throwing the football 40-plus times. This is running the football and taking the spots with Josh Allen. Again, it's very early. I wouldn't panic as a Josh Allen owner, but it may be different this year.
Okay. Then let's continue with the worries and get some wide receivers in here because I only had 2 originally in the column. And then got a lot of questions about the 2 after. So we're going to have to talk about 4 real quickly here. So first up is DJ Moore. Caleb Williams was in the worry report last week, but now it's DJ Moore's turn because people are severely worried about DJ Moore. I think this is a good buy low opportunity, mostly because I think the Bears offense, not the defense, the offense is as bad as it can get right now. Like, it is awful. Like, Caleb Williams looks off. I will say the way that he's extending some plays, he's actually doing much better than something we've talked about with Bryce Young. Is like he's still keeping the play. He's keeping his body in the proper position most of the time. He's not making insane throws. It's some questionable ones so far, but he's not reckless to the NFL level where it's like, oh my God, what the hell is he even doing at quarterback? So I'm saying all that to say, like, it's been as bad as it can get. The backfield looks like trash. We've already talked about that. DeAndre Swift looks like beyond anything. People expected a fall off. I don't think anybody expected it to be this bad, losing all the third down work, or third down touches, I should say. He's been out there for a few snaps, but all third down touches to Khalil Herbert through the first 2 weeks. That's bad as well. But DJ Moore, look, the number one, no Keenan Allen in week 2, banged up Odunze. There's just disjointed across the board. And I'm saying that to say it's as bad as it can get. I expect Caleb Williams and the Bears offense to grow in this season. So I would actually take a chance on buying DJ Moore, but I will say where he was a mid wide receiver 2 at the beginning of the season for me, like that 18 to 21-ish range, like right in there with a lot of names. We talked about how giant that tier was. You and I just focused on that so much. I actually think he's probably more of a wide receiver 3 now. So I think that deserves 2 ducks, is because he's not awful. It's not somebody else we're going to talk about here, but it's enough to knock him down a peg.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. You hope that the offense gets better. I think, the play calling is not where it needs to be, especially when you see
we said that, though.
Yeah, I know. Like, they need to get an offensive mind. Like Waldron, I don't know, like, call a screen pass or something, dude. Like, the pressure is just in your quarterback's face the entire game. And it's going to be like that moving forward. Everybody saw that on Sunday Night Football, and Houston just dialing up pressure. So they're going to have to adjust that way. I agree with your ranking. Your re-ranking of DJ Moore is like maybe a 3. He's going to have wide receiver 2 games, maybe high end 2 games. But yeah, I need everybody on the field, in particular, Keenan Allen. I don't know how much he has left to offer, but just having him on the field, I think, is good for everybody. And Rome Odunze evolving as a rookie, and you see DJ Moore. It almost looked like DJ Moore Carolina days. Like he was pissed, man. Like he's on the sidelines, like missing Justin Fields. There's that one throw. Yeah, here we go again. Like I'm going through another rookie quarterback or young quarterback. Like that play on the sidelines. I know you saw it when he was like he ran out. It was like I think he went 20 yards down the field, quick out of the left, and
he kept running. After he missed it.
And he
the
was
one where
right
he
there.
ran off the field. I was like, and I actually looked at it. I was like, is he running back to the team? Like, where is he going?
I think that was a different one. There was another one after where he just like rolled over, like he fell and then he rolled over the sidelines and tossed his helmet, and then he was just like, you could tell he was upset. And that was a ball that Caleb really like. He gave his rookie quarterback an opportunity to make a play on the sidelines, and he threw it. He missed it in. You got to miss out. Again, there's going to be some growing pains here with the quarterback play, the offensive play calling. But yeah, there's certainly reasons to. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be DJ Moore and Fields like last year, because that was really nice. That was an awesome connection.
Yeah. So DJ Moore is a wide receiver 3. This next one depends on how you looked at it, and that's what I said in the column. Depends on if you were with me or not. And I'm not victory lapping because missed some things already through 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about some of them are in waivers. But right now, through 2 weeks, my concern and everybody telling me I was nuts about having Michael Pittman as a wide receiver 3. Like, if you were with me, it's 1 duck. Like, this is what was going to happen. It's the targets are an important part. If he's not getting 150 targets, he's not going to be a wide receiver 2. He at 110, 120, he's going to be a wide receiver 3. Right now, if that, he's not even that. But the added level to it, where I'm saying if you expected him to be a wide receiver 2 is where I'm going with this, Meaney. If that was your expectation, it's a full 4 ducks, because Josh Downs is about to come back. One of the things I have possibly missed is that Adonai Mitchell might have supplanted Josh Downs because he can play inside and outside, and they were moving him around, but Adonai Mitchell was clearly behind Alec Pierce in week 2. So it looks like Josh Downs, I'm saying all this in the waivers, is kind of looping this all together because Josh Downs is in the waiver wide receivers. It looks like Josh Downs might have a chance to come back immediately as the 2 and even supplant Pierce. I wouldn't start him right out of the gate because those 3 could be a complete mess and kind of a rotation similar to the Packers type of situation. But all it comes back to is Michael Pittman is not a wide receiver 2 with this team.
No, he's not. And like you said, if people have been hanging out with us, I mean, we talked about the splits tool over at FTN Fantasy, the difference between his numbers with Gardner Minshew versus Anthony Richardson. And I know it's just a 4-game sample, and I understand. I'm looking here and I see 15 targets and 7 grabs. It's really nice. Like that, the fact that he's gotten 15 targets through 2 games, but He only has 52 receiving yards. It just doesn't seem like it's a good fit for Anthony Richardson's strengths. And his strengths are, running the football, some RPOs, and taking some shots deep down the field. And we've seen those shots with Alec Pierce. We've seen those shots with Adonai Mitchell. And now you mentioned Josh Downs, who's going to come back. So it's just like another guy inside that offense. Plus, at the same time, we know they want to run the football. So I would be concerned about Michael Pittman. I have 0 shares of Michael Pittman because he was just getting, in high stakes, he was getting drafted as wide receiver 12, 13. And we have him in the 20s. So we just don't have any shares.
High-stakes stack.
Yeah, he's a 3, and after like one good game, I'd actually consider moving on from him. He's also not a big touchdown guy.
No, I agree with you there. All right, so last 2 worries, and then this is the one. These are added on. This is because everybody kept asking multiple comments in the section over the Athletic. Amari Cooper and Christian Kirk. So Amari Cooper, another one I was pretty low. I was lower than most on, but I still had him as a wide receiver 3. He is anything but right now. The laughable 17 targets for, this, Meaney.
Man.
What is it? 17 yards? 5 catches for 17 yards or something like that? I don't even remember off the top.
Silly.
Something around there. Something. Or is it 5 for 12? It's bad. Christian Kirk, also something we talked about last week. I've been talking about in the waiver columns. It seems he's out there running routes. But if you went by more than just routes, which is why, I use metrics, you do too. The FTN has great tools. At the same time, watch all these games and talk about them because there's 2 levels to it. If you only looked at the metrics, you would say Christian Kirk is still the one, like just looking at routes run. The problem is he's out there and he's getting snaps and he is on routes, but he's also blocking. And in one wide receiver sets, it's Gabe Davis. And if you're talking about how this offense works, it actually starts with Brian Thomas. And then there's kind of a toss-up between Gabe Davis and Christian Kirk. And again, you go back to the one wide receiver. Again, Gabe Davis is probably blocking a lot of those too. Or actually, not probably, he is. But all that being said, is Kirk is down at 2, if not battling with Gabe Davis to be the 2nd/3rd option. Amari Cooper, to go back to him, has a Deshaun Watson problem, but at least he's getting the targets. And I'm actually willing to buy low on Cooper because people are willing to drop Amari Cooper, which means I can get him for very little and stash him on my bench until things get right, which maybe is even a quarterback change. Who the hell knows? But I think Cooper's a 4. Kirk, actually, I'll let you answer. Both of them for you. I would go Cooper over Kirk. I'd be willing to buy low on Cooper. I actually don't really even want Kirk at this point, and that's how concerned I am about his situation. And I was hoping he would be better this year because I had them very close as wide receiver 3s. So I would almost say Cooper's a 4, Kirk is a 5 now at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. Last week, I ranked Brian Thomas ahead of Kirk. I wanted to do it week 1, but it's like, man, I got to wait and see this thing play out. He's a rookie wide receiver. He's going to deal with Jalen Ramsey. And I thought he did a great job against Jalen Ramsey, which we talked about, right? Touchdown, could have had 2. I am concerned about both offenses. And Trevor Lawrence, like you said yesterday on the Sirius show, there's no more excuses for T-Law. Like, this is the year he needs to show us. He does, and it's 7 losses in a row. He looks uncomfortable. He's missing some throws and reads. So Kirk's another guy, right? He doesn't have a lot of touchdown upside. The deep threat guys in this offense are Brian Thomas. Gabe Davis is on the field all the time, like led the team in snaps back-to-back weeks because of his blocking ability. I would buy on Cooper. I think it's going to get a little bit better in Cleveland, but like not a whole lot. If people are thinking like Deshaun Watson of the 2020s is going to come back in here, it's just not going to happen. Like that's a long time ago. And Watson is another guy that looks uncomfortable. That game was really tough to watch between Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Like, which guy is worse here in this game? But the fact that he's getting all those targets, like he is 27 yards, by the way, Amari Cooper, unlike 15 targets. But he's got 15 targets.
Another 7 in there.
Christian Kirk has 7 targets. He just had a game where he had -1 yard. So I'm going to lean with Amari Cooper. And I wonder, like, one of these Rams wide receivers that you have, Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, like, could you flip one of these guys, get Amari Cooper? It may be a slight win. It may feel like a sideways move, but I think there's a higher ceiling to have Cooper and just, like, tell the league, like, hey, man, you got Demarcus Robinson here as the guy for the next 7 weeks. Do you care?
And that's why, when I was talking to Pat yesterday, he said he wouldn't buy low on Cooper. He'd wait for somebody to drop him. And I said, no, like, this is why. Because if he is dropped, now you have to try and chase him on waivers with everybody else. Like, you're kind of like, you're playing that game. Also, you might have made a waiver move where you filled up your roster. Now you have a tough decision like, ooh, do I hold on to blank or Cooper? Right now, as you said, you just get the buy low, and then you get them. It's like hockey when you buy the rights before they go, like for people that know about their free agency, like you're buying the rights. Like, go get Cooper before he hits waivers. By the way, Trevor Lawrence, inaccurate quarterbacks in front of him right now throughout the season, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Tua, Richardson, and Young. That's the entire list. That's
not good. That's not a list you want to be on. And by the way,
although
for
Goff
Cooper,
being there is weird. Goff looks
brutal. And that Lions offense for the first 2 games has looked awful. And I know Dan Campbell took the blame yesterday, but the OC may have to take a little bit of the blame.
The way you said that, are you giving Goff any ducks?
I'd maybe give him 1. I think they can figure this thing out, but I don't understand why he threw the football 50+ times in that game against the Bucs. And what they do well is it starts with the run. Like, we're all smiles for Jameson Williams. It looks like it's happening. Amon-Ra, great. And it looks like, for the most part, Laporte is the guy that's taken the hit because of Jameson Williams. But what they do well is run the football with both of their backs behind that offensive line. And I get it. The Bucs run defense has been okay over the past couple of years, but they got away from the run game way too early. And that's what Dan Campbell was talking about. I don't think he wanted to throw his OC under the bus. He took the blame for the loss, but Goff looked awful in that game, to the point where I'm like, man, I got this team to win the Super Bowl. And I can already say after week 2, and listen, I get things wrong. I understand there's somebody tweeted at me about me saying the Niners are going to roll the Vikings. I deserve that L. But like, as somebody who took the Lions to win the Super Bowl, I can sit here and say right now,
full on panic,
September 17th, that Goff is going to be the reason they don't win the Super Bowl. Because like, if the game is on the line for Goff and it's not in the dome, which he started at home, which is one of the reasons why he likes him. I'm still in on the Lions because the Cowboys and the Eagles and the Niners are going through it. So I'm still in on the Lions to make a significant run.
I like that you forced me to change. So if you don't know, on Sirius XM, you forced me. Like this, I'm technically now 3 for 3 because I said, what are the lines? And I said, no, I don't. And I switched to Devontae Smith for the first touchdown because I wanted the plus money. I switched over.
You've been correct every time. At least I've scored a touchdown.
I need to stop. I need to retire right now. But what I was going to say is you made me switch another one because if you remember, I was like, ooh, this is going to be the year. No, Texans. And I said Texans, Lions. And you said, I have the Lions too. And I said, no, then I'm changing Texans, Packers is what I changed it to, if you remember. And the Packers getting the win and being able to hold on while there's no Jordan Love, like,
it's huge. I had the Texans. I have the Texans in the. We're completely sidebarring here, but I have them in the AFC Conference Championship against KC. Like, I think that they're for real and they're ready to take the next step. And I think Baltimore. Like, anyone pick Baltimore, I wouldn't overreact on Baltimore's issues right now.
The only thing that concerns me about Kansas City is they're not even playing good and they're still winning.
Well, that's the thing. They didn't do that last year. They did last year too, right? They kind of just cruised through. Like, they had a little quote-unquote load management pitch count for Travis Kelce down the stretch of the season. They just kind of limped into the playoffs. They're like, listen, fine. We'll show you that the road to the Super Bowl doesn't have to go through Arrowhead.
You know who they are?
On the road.
They're the Golden State Warriors during their dynasty run. Remember, like, everybody's like, they don't even have the best record in the league. And the Warriors are like, we don't care. Like, we're going to be in the playoffs and turn it on.
And LeBron those years too, when they faced Atlanta. I remember when they faced the Hawks in the first round when he was with Cleveland, and the talk was like, "Oh, you don't have home field advantage. Do you understand that you're an underdog?" And LeBron was like, "Huh? Who, me? An underdog? I'll never be an underdog." And you know what happened? They swept Atlanta. They didn't care their placement. That's exactly it. Back to Cooper. Giants this week. Raiders, Washington, Philly. Those next 4 matchups for Amari Cooper is awesome. I may go try to get him today in a couple of my leagues.
We included so many things since I brought up Cooper.
I know. I get sidetracked talking about the sports, but you're spot on about the Chiefs. Like, it's all about just they're gonna cruise for win the division, no problem, and then it's about just getting right and being healthy. But interesting, they're bringing in Kareem Hunt.
So let's talk waivers. Thank you for that transition. Also, by the way, I know Chris Meaney, for anybody that goes and watches this later on YouTube, would have zero idea, even if I say the name of what the T-shirt I'm wearing. It's from its little faces. It's Jujutsu Kaisen. And you probably thought I just talked the foreign language there. That's how.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, it looks nice, but I have no idea.
No idea. All right, so let's talk waivers. And you know what? I was going to start at the top with running backs because we do have to talk the Chiefs here too. But you brought up Kareem Hunt, and I was originally going to start with Carson Steele and Samaje Perine. I would still start with Carson Steele and Samaje Perine.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about Kareem Hunt, not even in my 18. I guess I'm going to have to make a note to say I don't care about Kareem Hunt. Same way I don't care about Dalvin Cook. It's a body. It's a depth body. Kareem Hunt knows the system. I was actually thinking maybe they brought in Leonard Fournette or would bring in Leonard Fournette after he visited the Colts. Maybe he has more left in the tank than Hunt. But I say that because we saw Kareem Hunt. There's pretty much nothing left at this point. Like, there's nothing left in Kareem Hunt, Dalvin Cook, and apparently even Leonard Fournette. Like, these running backs just don't have anything left. So I go Carson Steele over Samaje Perine, barely. This could be wrong. I even said it in the waiver column. Like, I don't know. Like, but as of today, I'm going to take the one who's getting the goal line opportunities because of this offense. Normally, I would lean towards the pass catcher, but in the Chiefs' offense, I want the person getting the goal line carries. So I'm going to lean Carson Steele. I feel like Perine might have just fallen into the McKinnon role, which could still get touchdowns. But I'll go Steele, then Perine. If Kareem Hunt is signed, still not moving him, I go Steele, then Perine. But if Kareem Hunt is signed, I might pick up Bucky Irving before either one of them. How are you attacking this? Because even if I go after them, I'm probably only going like the 15 to 25% range in fab just because I'm okay with not getting them. I don't think this is blow your season budget on guys.
Yeah, I agree. I have some Perine already. I was hanging on, and I'm just like, maybe this turns into a flex play. Like, I'm not even super excited about Perine. And I'm with you on Hunt. That was my first initial thought when they brought him in, or reports that they were bringing him in, that it's going to be like a depth piece like Dalvin Cook. And I wonder if we may actually see Dalvin Cook active next week because Dallas hasn't showed us a whole lot in the ground game. Maybe they just try him out.
Terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they just try him out. But I agree with you in the fact that Steele is like the lead. You may get some carries from Perine, but I would say he just has that third down role, some red zone packages. Potentially, you hope that he has a receiving touchdown. He catches a couple passes, and that's what he does for you. But Steele, and they used him in that game. I told you that yesterday when the game was on the line. They settled for the field goal, and they ran the football with Steele. And I believe he had a fumble in week 1, or he missed an assignment. He did look like a rookie, which is going to happen. But Andy Reid trusted him in that situation to carry the ball over the past couple attempts when Pacheco went down. I thought that was pretty telling. And I do believe he'll be the goal line back there. So I wouldn't be aggressive. People are going to be more aggressive than you think because it's the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you need a running back, like say you have Kyron or you have Rachaad White, or heck, you weren't able to, recover from CMC, Mason wasn't there. Like maybe you need to get into the 20 to 25% range, but I wouldn't be going too much more than that. It's a long season. And like you said, we could be wrong about this. Like Perine could end up being a 50-50, and that would be a win for Perine.
Najee Harris, Jalen Warren situation. Give me Perine.
Warren got a lot more run last week. It was a split down the middle in terms of snaps between the two.
Yeah. And well, I mean, the worst example of this is Zamir White, Alexander Madison. Like, people want Madison over Zamir White. Like, I'm just using the worst possible example. But even when you have that kind of split work, although Zamir White actually did get more of the lead in week 2 than he did in week 1.
It's a big week for Zamir White. Week 3. It looks like he's close to being droppable.
Yeah. If Zamir White doesn't come through in this matchup.
Yeah, if he doesn't get double-digit carries and 50 rushing yards, you should be really concerned about Zamir White. And send all your complaints to me at Chris Meaney.
So there's a much bigger list at wide receiver, but running back real quick. Deonta Foreman situation. So don't want anything to do with a muddied backfield. That's a committee, and that's what they came out with. There's a full-blown committee. Foreman started the game for the Browns. Pierre Strong got sprinkled in. Jerome Ford got mixed in. Jerome Ford still did great on the ground. It had a really big run, too, obviously. But Jerome Ford is like weird because it was like, what did he ever do to lose this job? I don't know what's going on with the Browns, and maybe they just thought Foreman was more of the matchup situation, which I'm saying all this to say, maybe they think Foreman's a little bit better fit for the spark in the offense with Deshaun Watson, whatever it might be. I have Foreman at 5. Here's who he's sandwiched between. Ty Chandler, who I would still take, in that I'm an Aaron Jones guy now. You know this, we joked about this. I became an Aaron Jones guy. But I think Chandler is used enough to be a RB3 flex each week with his touches that I would still take him over not trusting the Browns that Foreman is the guy. And then Foreman is directly in front of Chuba Hubbard, which we'll talk about again in a second because his rostership has dropped quite a bit. But now we have Andy Dalton, who we'll talk about. But if this is a Jerome Ford week, wouldn't shock me. And the worst part about this, meaning that I think happens here, is what if it is a Jerome Ford week? Now you go into week 4 and you can't start Ford or Foreman because we need to see it again. And then if it goes back to Foreman, you're waiting another week. If it's 2 weeks in a row, cool, you can start him in week 5. But then what if it flips again? I kind of want to be away from this backfield, but I will take a chance because only look at who they get this week. They get the Giants at home.
Yeah, that's what's appealing about Cooper too, right? It's a get right spot for everybody. Maybe Watson can toss a couple touchdowns. The offensive line does have some issues. It's not to the Rams point, but there are some guys missing and not 100% healthy. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe to your point, they felt like Foreman was the better play because of the matchup, but. Yeah, Ty Chandler. Give me Ty Chandler because seems like the better long-term play. At some point, we do believe that Nick Chubb is going to come back, and when Nick Chubb returns, then what happens to Foreman or Ford? You're not even considering these guys. So yeah, I wouldn't start either. Take a flyer on Foreman. I always felt like maybe he would have a role near the goal line over the first few weeks when Chubb is sidelined. I do believe that if they get into situations near the goal line, that it would be Foreman's over Ford. And if Ford was dropped this week, maybe you can pick him up as a flyer, especially in a PPR league, but it's just really like a stash, a bench piece. I'm not excited about this Browns offense, particularly the run game until Chubb comes back. And I like the Ty Chandler call. Looks like he's just going to have a role, right? Regardless. Yeah, so, a couple carries here and there and a couple catches.
Do you like Foreman over Hubbard as well, even with Andy Dalton?
Yeah, because that's another guy too, right? That it's just they're both short-term plays. I'm sure that they'll be able to run the ball a little bit better.
You said it's a and change. I thought you were about to say it's a show. I thought you were.
Well, it is. With Dalton under center, maybe they could move the ball a bit more, but we do expect to see Jonathan Brooks at some point too, right into October. So,
yeah, at some point. At this point,
maybe they decide to wait until November.
That's so. Real quick before we get to wide receivers, I threw Cam Akers in at 10. Only, and this is what I said, only if Joe Mixon is out and Dameon Pierce is at least limited. So that might sound like I'm saying limited or better. I mean limited or worse. Joe Mixon being out is obviously the big play here. But if Dameon Pierce is practicing in full, I don't even want Cam Akers at 10. I don't know that Pierce isn't the guy because he was just not hurt last week, and that's all it is. Cam Akers looked fine, looked good, but we've seen him look good before. You tell me Dameon Pierce practices in full this week and it's Akers and Pierce, I'm not starting either one of them.
No.
I'd start it. I'm trying to think how far down the list I would go. McLaughlin, who the Broncos have again this week? They're in Tampa Bay. I mean, that's the range I would start thinking about Cam Akers is McLaughlin. That's how far I would have to go before I trusted him.
With no Mixon, you mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it's hard to say because week 1 was Pierce over Akers because what you said, right? Akers wasn't active and Pierce was. And then week 2, Pierce is hurt and Akers is in, although Akers looked okay. The coaching staff may feel like he's behind Pierce, but also at the same time, he just played and looked okay. So maybe it's a split. It would be a split. I wouldn't say that either guy would be, if there's no Akers, I wouldn't say either guy's the lead. I would say that D'Amico Ryans is probably just hey, you guys are both going to get an opportunity here and we'll ride the hot hand. Literally, we will take drive for drive. And if it looks like Akers, you're having a good game, we'll give you a second consecutive drive or something like that. You know what I mean? It doesn't, I don't think there's a clear winner here behind Mixon.
Neither do I. All right. So do you have a problem dropping any of these? Jeff Wilson, Ezekiel Elliott, Chase Brown. Obviously, that's the order I would drop them in. And you're not dropping them I'm not dropping Chase Brown to go chase Emmanuel Wilson just because,
Yeah, you want up at the top of the guys you just talked about, right? The Chiefs guys.
Chase Brown's still sandwiched between Ty Chandler and Trey Benson as one of the better backups. He's just now a backup, not a hold. Okay. Moving to waivers at wide receiver, Khalil Shakir dropped under 60%. So if he got dropped in your league, I know. After week 1, I would understand, maybe if it happened after week 2.
And I thought he was okay in week 2.
He was. He led the team.
Coleman had a big 0.
I know. So anyway, I was super shocked by that one. Number 2, and I love talking about this mostly because this isn't a victory lap situation because I had a lot of Joshua Palmer because he was running as the 1. I like talking about this because I feel good for the player. I've joked about this a million times that Quentin Johnston had a rookie season that everybody expected and said was his profile coming out of college, myself included. I was giving him his pass. Most people are like, his career's over. He's dead. He's buried. I bring up the drops all the time. The drops was a lower percentage, not totals, lower percentage than Keenan Allen, but they were magnified because of touchdowns, big plays, island games. It was bad situations. Quentin Johnston has taken advantage of this situation. This situation is no DJ Chark, if I could say his name, hasn't even stepped on the field. And then Joshua Palmer's been banged up, as has been Joshua Palmer, both weeks, so much so in week 2 that he actually came out. And Quentin Johnston said, you know what? You opened the door for me. I'm taking advantage finally. Looks good, is actually separating better than he did as a rookie. He's catching balls that he wasn't catching as a rookie. Quentin Johnston, if Khalil Shakir, Rashid Shaheed would be my number 1. He's still only in 60-some-odd% of leagues, and I see people asking about him. Shaheed would be my 1. Shakir would be my 2. But for true under 50% rostership, Quentin Johnston needs to be. If you have Josh Palmer, swap him out. Josh Palmer's no longer the 1. Josh Palmer was in play as the 1, but the injuries have ruined that for him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you him versus Palmer rest of the season, and I'm glad you said that, and Quentin, because I'm with you. A lot of people were down on him. It wasn't just us. He was in the 90s. He was having issues staying on the field in camp, catching passes, running routes, but the opportunity is there, and just so many guys are gone from that offense, and Joshua Palmer, although he may return and have some nice moments, like Quentin Johnston's on the field now, and he's the guy that they drafted in the first round. He's the guy that has the higher ceiling. And I saw some JC Horn on him in that game, and he hung around, man. He didn't look like a guy that couldn't run any routes or didn't belong to be on the field against the top corner. He looked pretty good. And there's structure in LA this year with Harbaugh and Roman, as opposed to the mess of Staley and whatnot over the past couple of years. And they're running the football, and that does open up some play action and some opportunities for some one-on-one. So I liked what I've seen. And, the second touchdown, whatever. The first one, I told you, that was really nice to see, man. He came back to the ball. He dove in. The hands were there. It was a nice throw from Herbert. So, yeah, Quentin Johnston. And I also agree, Shaheed and Shakir over him. But Quentin Johnston's going to be a hot waiver wire pickup. And, you always say when it's a trap. I don't believe is. I think you can maybe play him as a flex play moving forward.
I think he's wide receiver 3-4 range, potentially even more if this continues. Again, there's a reason he was taken in the first round, and sometimes, what is the shot?
And I still like Ladd, by the way, too.
Yes.
Palmer's the guy that takes the hit.
Of course. Again, I wrote the article about first round wide receivers and 50% hit rate in the first round. First round wide receivers, let alone going deeper than that. They're not all going to be amazing from day one.
No.
Next up are the Rams. So Shakir's on the list because he was under 60 on Yahoo. So he's 1, Johnston's 2. Again, Shaheed's not even there. But 3, 4, and 5 are the Rams. Do you want to guess the order I have them in? Because it might shock some people.
I want to say you have Robinson, Whittington, and then Johnson. I still want to leave that Robinson's one. Okay. All right.
You got it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Whittington is the surprise then.
I think for most people. So DeMarcus Robinson, yes, I'm still taking as the 1, but I would take as knowing what I'm going to get. I'm going to get later career Deshaun Jackson. I'm going to get, 5 for 80 and a touchdown, 4 for 90 and a touchdown, maybe just 4 for 95 and nothing on a touchdown department. And then what the hell happened? 2 for 31. Like, just kind of like, that's going to be Demarcus Robinson, especially with Matthew Stafford concerns, offensive line concerns, offense as a whole concerns. But Whittington is the 2. Is the same thing I said when people were trying to grab him in the preseason. If you had already drafted and you had waivers or were drafting late and hadn't taken him yet, is chill out on Whittington versus 2s. Basically, like the entire 2s were on the field. But know this, the Whittington situation, and why I said let's remember his name, is because he fills the Cooper Kupp role, somewhat Puka Nacua too. But that my issue back then was that Demarcus Robinson is Demarcus Robinson. He's not losing his role. He's also not changing if Kupp and Nacua are gone. His target share might go up a little bit. It's just going to happen. But his role is his role. Who steps up in the Kupp role? As soon as he left the game, not only was Whittington 12 routes. That's the same as Demarcus Robinson. It's in front of Tyler Johnson. And he was tied. Where's it? No, it was 5 more. So he's tied with Demarcus Robinson at 12 routes. 5 more. They only ran 7. It wasn't, again, the offense was struggling. It was 12 routes with no Cooper Kupp. 5 more than Tyler Johnson. And it was a 72% snap percentage in the slot for Whittington. Oh, by the way, all that works. So Whittington is behind him, and then Tyler Johnson. I feel like Tyler Johnson's safer, but I'm going to shoot for the upside of Whittington.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you, and I'm excited to take a couple shots on him, and I think he'll get overlooked because in some of my leagues, Tyler Johnson's still available, and I think he'll be the guy that most people want to spend that fab. We got a little bit of buzz last week, but Whittington is like, yeah, I know. I'm with you on Whittington. In the slot is significant for him, and you did say this, in the preseason. Your write up, and you addressed the write up, and you said that they're kind of looking to the future for Whittington and him playing that Cooper Kupp role. And man, it's going to happen already. I feel for McVay and company. It's going to be might be a long season, but I think it's better to get they're going to have to change their game plan up a little bit, right? Let's get the ball out quick with that offensive line. That could benefit a guy like Whittington.
All right, so moving down from there, number 6, another one. Speaking of overlooked, Romeo Doubs. Still, like, if Jordan Love was at quarterback, like if he didn't get hurt, Doubs would be all the way at the top. Like,
yeah, these guys are going to get dropped, and I just would scoop them up knowing that Love's going to be back soon.
The pecking order, actually, Christian Watson fell to 3 behind Jaden Reed this past week. And like I talk about for routes and everything like that, it was Watson and Dobbs. Actually, it was Dobbs clearly ahead. Dobbs has been by far the one in both games. Again, I'm waiting for Love. I'm not saying the Dobbs down by 6 because there is no Love. But then Mike Williams, snap count went up again, and he's pushing Lazard. He's getting close to that number 2 spot. I'm going to live and die by Mike Williams being a thing this year. Downs is at 8. Thielen at 9 for Andy Dalton now being at quarterback. And then we're into the Cooks, Pierce, Judy, Mooney. Mooney's still behind Judy. I think Judy's kind of getting overlooked because of how bad the offense is. But he's been the best weapon for the Browns.
He has. He's the one that's
buying into Judy?
There's still like a little bit of Elijah Moore, and I would like him to go away. But Judy had the touchdown in week 1. He had a nice catch along the sidelines in week 2. Yeah, a little bit. I think it's fair where you have him. I believe there's probably a little bit more upside than with him than a Thielen. Right there with Brandon Cooks.
I don't know. I have a feeling we might get
we may get some moments from Thielen, but what you
get
said
like a
yesterday,
peppered Thielen.
Maybe we do see Bryce Young again, or maybe that's it. Like some people think that. I mean, Ryan Clark last night in the broadcast, when you bench your number 1 overall pick, your quarterback, 2 games into week 2, that's it. And I don't think that's it.
I don't either, because
a lot of people in the game do believe that that's writing on the wall for his future in Carolina.
No, I would bet money that that's not it. And what I laid it out to Pat yesterday is so if you look at their schedule, it's actually a lot of winnable games until their bye week. So they have at Vegas this week. If you told me they pulled the upset with Andy Dalton, wouldn't be shocked. No. Bengals, at Chicago, Atlanta, maybe. Washington, maybe. Denver, maybe. Saints, no. Giants, maybe. And that's not really at home. That's in Germany. And then they hit the bye week. So I said that to say, like, if they're somehow 500, like, I wouldn't be completely shocked. I still would. There's a lot of questions on defense, too, let's be honest. But if they were 500, I could see Andy Dalton continuing. But here's the problem coming out of the bye. Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Philly, Dallas, Arizona, Tampa Bay, Atlanta to finish out the season. That's rough. I'm
You
not
can't
saying
put
it's a
him back
great.
in for that run.
Well, no, but they can, and that's what I'm saying is because at some point they're going to be out of the playoff race. This is not a playoff team, even with Andy Dalton. And I'm saying once they are, Andy Dalton's not the answer. Even if Andy Dalton can't, like, if Andy Dalton today through the end of the season threw 3,800 yards and 25 touchdowns and Bryce Young never stepped on the field, the Panthers wouldn't be like, we've got to sign back Andy Dalton to go into next year with Andy Dalton as our quarterback. No. They need to know if Bryce Young is the answer. So Bryce Young's getting back under center at some point because they're going to find out if this is a lost draft pick or they're taking a quarterback next year. Andy Dalton starting the rest of the season doesn't answer your question. It actually creates more questions.
Right. Yeah. And it makes me sweat out the under 4.5 win total, man, because you just rattled off some games where they could win with Andy Dalton. That's an uneasy feeling. I got one more wide receiver to bring up with you. I don't know where he's on your list. Jalen Tolbert. I don't know if that was just one game. When I watch Dallas, I feel like they really need a two. Like the Saints.
They do, but I don't think he's past Cooks yet.
No, not can he move past Cooks? Like, because Cooks, and I don't want to take anything away from Cooks. I had it down here. He didn't score a touchdown last week, but he has 6 in his last 9 games now. Like, he's scoring touchdowns, and he does look like the two. Like, Ferguson's definitely the 2 when he's healthy, but he does look like the wide receiver 2. And I wonder if Tolbert can pass him. But just like when I watch Dallas, just like from a football standpoint, they really do need a number 2 wide receiver. One, they need a run game and they can't stop the run. That's some story for another day. But like this team is going to adjust, and CD still had a good game, but there were moments in the second half where they tripled him. They really focused on CeeDee Lamb, and they said, go ahead. And maybe that was why Tolbert had 9 targets, 6 grabs, and 82 yards. But I think, like, moving forward, teams may decide to have that sort of game plan and, like, go ahead, man. Like, try to beat us with a number 2. And I wonder if Tolbert, maybe it would just be a 14-16 team. Like, I got him on 116 dynasty squad.
I mean, if I went 30 wide receivers deep, probably, because that was so still have Jalen Polk in there. I would actually take a flyer on him over. He's still 4th in routes, but it's clearly the most upside. Gabe Davis, Juwan Jennings with no Deebo Samuel. I'm going down this list here. John Dotson's all the way down at 23, even with no AJ Brown. It just I brought it up yesterday.
He wasn't even involved yesterday.
Yeah, is Britan or is it Covey or Covey?
Covey, yeah.
Because
I was surprised how much they used him. Yeah, it's Covey. He led the NFL in punt return yards. I was surprised how much they used him. Maybe a little bit too much in the red zone. My goodness.
But I think Dotson could still get worked in more. But he's all the way down 23. He's one spot in front of Adonai Mitchell. I'm legitimately concerned about Mitchell because he was by far the 3. And if Downs is back this week, I would put Mitchell higher up if it wasn't for the fact that I think Downs is close enough that he's back this week. Wan'Dale Robinson, Roman Wilson, I'm still stashing, because he is the 2. Once he's ready to be the 2, he is the 2. So then now we're in that range where I would say, okay, Tolbert's kind of in this 20-ish range. Yeah. But I put him in the I'll pass for now section along with Yoshivas, because Yoshivas and his whopping 7 yards for 2 touchdowns, again, not the answer. More of a 3. We need to hit his back. So real quick before we get out of here then, Dumpsville wide receivers. Again, this is the order I would drop these wide receivers in. Curtis Samuel, half the routes of Matt Collins, by the way.
Definitely
gone. Josh Palmer, I would drop Palmer at this point. Like, can't even stay healthy. And then these 2 are a little bit more dicey. Christian Watson, even with Jordan Love, because he's fallen to 3. And again, he's boom or bust. We are waiting for Jordan Love. Even when Jordan Love gets back, it's Reed and Dobbs. Like, we have a clear answer now, finally. Yeah, we have the answer we wanted. And I don't know that Wicks doesn't start pushing Watson. As we saw. Yeah. And then this is the one we talked about last week. I don't want to, but if Quentin Johnston's out there, I 100% would. Khalil Shakir, Rashid Shaheed, 100% would. All 3 Rams, just to take a flyer. Romeo Dobbs, I would take the chance. When we start talking Josh Downs, I'd probably take the chance. This is where I don't know if I would go. Thielen, Cooks, Pierce, Judy, kind of in that range to drop DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh yeah, I would move on from Hopkins for at least the.
Would you go further?
All those other names, I don't know. What were the last few? You said Judy Cooks, Pierce, Noah Brown, Josh Reynolds.
Josh Reynolds, the best Broncos, the only Broncos wide receiver doing anything.
Man, took a couple of deep shots with him too. One he came down with. Yeah, I mean Hopkins is that big name, but he's not healthy at the moment.
And how does the
Will
knee?
Levis
How did you
is
tore a
still
ligament? How does it get
brutal.
better by playing on the damn field?
You gotta play through that is pretty surprising. Yeah, and he's I don't. It's just 2 weeks, but he played behind Treylon Burks again last week, so he is behind 3 dudes in that offense, and things do get a little bit better for the Titans. I mean, there was 2 very tough games to start, but Will Levis is not looked good. Oh my goodness, man! Callahan's called him out a couple times. Yeah, I would drop Hopkins for maybe the first few, definitely the first few guys you said. I'd probably just hang on to him, compared to Judy and whatnot and Palmer.
Yeah, I'm thinking that range.
But yeah, but I mean, to your point, in an 8 team, definitely 10 team, definitely 12. Like you're not starting him. You're hoping that he can get healthy. But to your point, like how does he get healthy? If he's going to play through this all year long, then it's just you're not going to want a piece of him. Ridley, and that's it.
Yeah, I was like the Thielen one I keep going back and forth on. Like just because we know what the ceiling of Thielen is, but I feel like the ceiling could just be Jacoby Myers, which is wide receiver 20-something for the past couple of years, like just peppered. I don't know. Would you, if it was you had to pull the trigger as we get out of here, Thielen or Hopkins? You have to pick one.
Give me Thielen.
And I think I would go Thielen too. At least he's healthy.
Yeah, and
Andy Dalton, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in
he really
the history
is.
of everything.
We can laugh at Dalton in the prime time and the playoff stuff all we want, but he's made wide receivers relevant over the course of his career, and I would expect an uptick from Deontay and Thielen moving forward as long as he's under center. You just rattled off the schedule. There's some games that they'll hang around. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, you have some more winnable things if you check out Meaney at Chris Meaney over at FTN. The bets, the tools, all everything over there, and the waivers are live on The Athletic, and the rankings will be out midnight on Tuesday. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, they're not out yet, so be patient, and we'll have them. And we'll be back next week. If you're watching on YouTube, and this is how I'm going to wait for Fox to decide when to cut me off. I'm sorry about the lights. Apparently, this is an electrical issue over here. They're flickering in the background, and it's raining outside. I don't know how much concern this is. Maybe I need to have an electrician come by and help me, and I'm still waiting. Like I'm going to keep going because it's like a kind of like a fire hazard, possibly. Like the switch